this just puts on paper that they will be transferred to the city, and that way there's a guarantee to the city that we'll be receiving the funds from
So
that.
what you're saying is that whenever there's a quinceañera or a wedding, that whatever monies are generated and goes to the 4A, the 4A pays maintenance and operations of it, and whatever can't get paid with that, the city has to.
Has to kick back
And
in.
then we get
Because we do it already.
And then basically tabulating it and whatever we get out of our you know, our
The general fund.
the
or
general
wherever
fund,
it comes from.
yeah. Then we get compensated that.
But that'll be at the end of whenever the bonds get paid off, or
And if there isn't enough.
earlier, if the O and M is covered by the rentals, then whatever excess the 4A generates would come back to the city to pay off whatever's there.
But if there isn't enough,
Then you subsidize.
Then the city pays, or like the city's paying for everything right now already.
yeah, but if there isn't enough that's brought in from that quarter cent.
Then you subsidize.
Oh, at the end of the 15 to 20 years, I mean, and they get everything returned to them, there should eventually be enough, it's what, 400,000? I think something
No, I
like
think
that
he's
right
talking
now.
about the payment for the bonds.
Oh, well, we're still gonna have to cover the difference on that anyway.
That's why it's important to have things going on out there so you generate bonds.
And as the sales tax goes up, we would keep all of the sales tax that comes in. Even if it goes over and above the bond payments, the 4A would still come in, and then that can be used to subsidize O and M by the city putting that into the, there, because that's the purpose of the 4A funds.
Yeah, and I think the easy way, because we're gonna get, Richardson's gonna have additional sales tax, and CVS is
And
coming, so,
McDonald's.
and McDonald's we're gonna get, so it is safe to say that it's going to increase, and so that 404 is not set in stone, but it's gonna go up going forward. So if we get to $500,000, and so it's enough to make, and there's leftover after payment, then we can start saying, okay, so what we subsidize with is the overage for that O and M. But you get to keep all of the sales tax, it gets to the city. They obligating all of the sales tax, whether it be 450 or 350.
Or it becomes 750, it's still gonna be transferred to the city.
All of that's transferred to you,
Annually.
yes.
But yeah, as it's remitted in, or this one.
Any questions? No, can I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the interlocal agreement as stated under 2B.
Is it clear, Bill?
Yeah. The caption was ready.
Second? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion by Councilman Guerrero, second by Councilman Rodriguez. Councilman Rodriguez, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councilman Tejada?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries 4-0. Okay, Chris, you can stay right there. 2C, consideration and approval of the intergovernmental lease between the City of Floresville 4A Corporation and the City of Floresville, Texas.
This was tabled by the 4A because they had some questions about it. They just hired counsel as of Monday. And the lease doesn't really have any bearing on the bonds. The lease issue had come up last year regarding the TABC permit. And that was what kind of got the ball rolling on all this. It doesn't have anything to do with our process for the refinancing. So my recommendation is, since they tabled it, we table it, because there's really nothing to consider approval for. They're gonna work through with their attorney, get changes to it, send it back, and then at that time, we can say, all right, the city agrees with these changes, or the city doesn't agree with these changes. But as of tonight, there's really nothing to consider.
It's just for the property, right? Not the building?
Right, because they own the property, I believe.
Correct.
And so this would be for us to have an interest out there in something we can protect. So,
I so move to table.
Okay, do I have a second? Okay, I have a motion by Councilman Tejada, second by Councilman Rodriguez to table. Councilman Guerrero, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councilman Lopez?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
you want this one, Jeff, or you want me to go through?
Well, whatever, I'm happy to.
I'll let you know.
Okay, now we're gonna go on to 2D. I have to read all this one. Consideration and approval of an ordinance 2015-12 by the City Council of the City of Floresville, Texas, authorizing the issuance of City of Floresville, Texas general obligation refunding bonds, Series 2015, levying an annual ad valorem tax within the limitations prescribed by law for the payment of the bonds, prescribing the form, terms, conditions, and resolving other matters incident and related to the issuance, sale, and delivery of the bonds, including the approval and distribution of an official statement pertaining thereto, authorizing the execution of a paying agent registrar agreement, a purchase contract, and an escrow deposit letter, complying with the letter of representation on file with the depository trust company, delegating the authority to certain members of the city council and the city staff to approve and execute certain documents relating to the sale of the bonds, authorizing the execution of any necessary engagement agreements with the city's financial advisors and/or bond counsel, and providing an effective date.
And real quick, Mayor, I just want to let you know, the individuals from Frost are here if there's any questions about what this ordinance is and what they're going for. We just had a slight concern that they weren't on the agenda for the workshop, so we didn't want you all to know you were just dragged out here for nothing.
Mayor, if I can, I'm Jeff Kuhn, it's my firm's privilege and honor to serve as your bond counsel. I will say that's a nice segue, Chris, because at least I'm not aware that y'all have received an update on the presentation since the last meeting I was at.
We're gonna go through that first.
Yeah, I think that would be in order, just so you can see, because you're gonna have to make, we have to, in a delegated ordinance, we're not coming back to the city council again. So you're gonna delegate, I think we agreed that, to the mayor and Ms. Turner as the authority, there are 4 things we have to agree upon. The maximum maturity, principal amount, maximum term, maximum interest rate, and not to exceed loss. So we're gonna have to decide those tonight. And Mr. Morrow can help you with that. But once we have that, the ordinance that the mayor has read basically delegates the authority for us to complete this transaction and to sell your bonds, and the good people at Frost put together a timetable on that.
Yes.
I thought it was in the annex guy was doing it.
Yeah, it's an old one.
Oh, okay.
It's it'll say restructuring plan.
Oh, there it is. You have better eyes than me.
There we go. I was looking for a PowerPoint.
There we go. That's big enough, y'all can see that, can't you? Well, Mayor, Council, Ms. Turner, good evening. For the record, my name is Duncan Morrow with Frost Bank. We have the privilege of serving as the city's financial advisor. I work with Mr. Quiroga, who we had a conflict in our schedule. He would have liked to have been here with y'all tonight, but he went to the client that isn't as nice as you all, so I'm happy to be here with you. As Mr. Kuhn said, this is the restructuring plan. You've seen this before. I just want to refresh your memory. And the big decision tonight is the term to agree on to fit the parameters into Mr. Kuhn's documents. So we have our 15-year repayment term and a 20-year repayment term. You can see there the annual 4A corporation sales tax collections currently at approximately $404,000 as of the 2014 sales tax collection. You can see the 2007 debt payment is approximately $84,000 a year. Series 2015 debt payments to restructure the 2010 bonds into a 15-year term would be approximately $530,000 annually. That's principal and interest. And then a 20-year term would be approximately $440,000 annually. So you can see there your total debt requirement on a 15-year, $615,000, and a 20-year is $524,000. So doing our revenues minus expenditures, we have a cash flow shortfall there of approximately $210,000 on the 15-year and $120,000 on the 20-year. And because we're extending the debt of the 2010 bonds, we're going to pay more in interest. So there is a cost, and we've quantified that, and that present value cost of extending the payments there, the cost is approximately $246,000 for the 15-year and a little bit more, $370,000 for the 20-year. Now this is, here at the bottom here, this is some new information I don't think you've seen, but basically it's the same exercise, but we took your current property values at $298 million. We think your value is going to go up from looking at your preliminary values, but from this scenario, we just took where you're at currently at the $298 million. To cover that cash flow shortfall on the 15-year or the 20-year, we put what that would mean in tax rate, an INS tax rate to cover that shortfall. So you can see there are approximately 7 pennies on the 15-year and 4 pennies on the 20-year. Now what does that mean to the homeowner? We quantified that as well. So your monthly impact on your $100,000 taxable home value, approximately $6 a month for a 15-year term, and $3.50 for a 20-year term. And that's your taxable value after exemptions, not your market value, just what you're taxed on. And we did the same exercise here, except that's your $325 million. So you can see we used a higher property value assumption. Your property values grow. You can see there that the tax rate impact will be less, below 7 cents, below 4 cents. And then that we quantified it what it would be to the homeowner in a $100,000 value. Are there any questions on that? We also did a cash flow analysis on the entire 4A corporation, so we included some budget figures of revenues they're receiving on rental fees and miscellaneous fees. You can see they're currently approximately $210,000, and then their budgeted maintenance and operations approximately $300,000. So we included those in there, as well as your sales taxes and the debt payments. So you can see there the cash flow shortfall, looking at the entire revenue and expenditures of the 4A corporation. Now our next steps to complete this refinancing, tonight you're considering this delegation authority, and we'll agree on the term to set the parameters on the restructuring. We're scheduled for, this is a fluid date, June 30th, so by the end of this month we'd actually enter the market, lock in an interest rate, and then that'd set us up for end of July 29th, closing of the transactions. Approving the delegation authority this evening and the parameters, we wouldn't have to come back before council. We could give us some flexibility in preparing documents and entering the market, trying to get you the lowest rate possible. Now these are just some terms of the financing that you've seen, and these will be incorporated in those documents. The big items to be addressed tonight is this number one here, what restructuring term the council would like us to pursue, the 15-year or the 20-year. And that's what the information I have for y'all. I'd be happy to facilitate any discussion or answer any questions.
So I can only add one thing, because Victor made this point every time and time again. When the 2010 deal was done, I wasn't here, but the 2010 deal was never envisioned as long term. We had a 2008 depression. Hey, we have a problem we have to fix. They fixed it the best they could. The capital appreciation bonds, knowing full well that there was never an intent that the city would pay other than $100,000 for this year, the millions of dollars for the next 4 years were never intended to pay that. So there was always going to be construction.
Yeah, and that's a great point. So this present value cost of extending the payments, I'm going to steal one of the council members' term. He called it a false cost, and I think that's a great way to, because we were never intended to pay the 2010 bonds off that soon. So it was always in the plan to be extended. So that extension of that's almost, we have to quantify it with the documents, but it's almost a false cost.
Which ones can you plug in? To manipulate the numbers?
Yes, additional revenue?
Yeah.
Is that what you want to look at? Do you have that Excel sheet that I sent you? Sterling?
It's in there.
All right, you're on top of it. Thank you. Can y'all see that?
I think there's a zoom in that you can change. There you go.
amounts would you want to see both overall and just grants?
Right overall. So we can see the numbers.
Is this what you're looking for?
Basically, if we see, if we have more revenue come in. say-
Okay. Let me just,
More sales tax revenue?
Yeah.
so just for easy math, I could add it to the, for the template you want to add sales tax collections, 200,000, let's say,
That should be
So
good,
let's say
just to kind of see what,
605,000. I'll do it to the 20 years as well. So we're close on our 20-year, that's adding $200,000 in sales tax.
less of a shortfall.
And that assumes that the rental fees stay at 210 and the operations stay at 302.
Yeah. Because I can pretty venture to say that nothing's gonna change with the rental fees and the miscellaneous on, you know, nothing's gonna change unless we have somebody promote that.
Exactly, that's why we need to promote that building.
I just want to make a comment that the way I see the trend of the sales tax, increase it by $300,000 on sales tax
It's too much.
is not realistic. Yeah, it's not gonna go up like that unless you get 5 or 6 businesses a year in the city. It's still,
How much is the
Well-
Whataburger getting? Because we can approximately equivalent that with the McDonald's, and I think Whataburger's number 2 or number 3 sales tax generator in the city, right?
Well, you mean, you would be able to do McDonald's,
I get
associate
the
McDonald's with
reports you get from the
Whataburger,
controller, it is
and then
just
you can
who's
do
paying, no,
even
who's
the new
paying that
Valero
money.
That's almost with HEB, because most of the HEB items are non-taxable, all the food.
Yeah.
So it'd be the pharmacy stuff would be most of your taxable.
well, the
stuff
HEB
there.
Express with the new Valero.
Yeah, and HEB Express with the Valero.
Yeah.
So we could kind of estimate where it's going, adding in this new stuff.
100,000 sounds pretty
Yeah, yeah,
reasonable,
same.
but 200, 300,000,
Yeah, no, I was
That
gonna
would
say
be too
probably
much.
about 100,000.
But we're looking at 15 to 20 years.
Correct.
Yes.
And the natural progression of what
Right.
are we increasing at right now?
So if she
10%,
feels
which is
safe-
unsustainable.
If she feels
but-
safe with $100,000,
increase a year.
you know, and so as we go forward, we say every other year,
Yeah.
it starts increasing, and so over a 15 to 20 year period. Now, one of the things that Mayor and I have been playing around with as we're talking, do we do 15 or do we do 20, is, you know, I would recommend that we try to do 15.
Yeah.
I think Victor's there, but 15, if you are seriously thinking about refinancing the land part, that's getting an interest of 7.5%. We don't have to do it today or any vote today, but I mean, if you're gonna keep the land at an option that you can do a third party, then you need to go 20 years, because I can't.
Let's talk about that legally just for a second if we can, because I don't want to give people, that debt cannot be refinanced. What we'd have to do is the city would have to acquire the land from the 4A. It would effectively be a refinancing, just mathematically, it works the same way, but we're not going to be issuing refunding bonds because the city can't refund the 4A revenue bonds with ad valorem tax bonds. But the city could issue ad valorem tax supported debt to buy the land from the 4A at today's tax exempt rates, which would functionally be the same thing, but I don't want to mislead people. So we would have to, if everyone's following me, so if the debt outstanding is, what's it, $1 million? How much debt
On the land?
on the 2007?
Yeah, I think that's a good,
I mean, just numbers.
Rough math, yeah.
So if it's now $1 million at 8% or whatever it is, we would be issuing $1 million of ad valorem tax, be buying the land from the 4A, and then converting that to current tax exempt rates, which would produce some savings, but, I mean, it's not gonna be that significant, right, Duncan,
right, yeah, 'cause
mathematically.
your annual payment's 85,000, so
84.
84,000, we
Yeah,
got a lower,
and the value of the land was 909,000.
so you wouldn't notice it
So you might get down
significantly.
to
On your annual
78,
payment.
80 if
A
you're real lucky.
7% to a 3%, you don't
But
notice
the
it.
principal amount isn't big enough to mathematically
In the
I don't
long
wanna
term,
move.
in the long
Yeah,
term?
I don't think that's, well, if you shorten the debt, right, and reduce the interest rate, certainly you'll be saving money over the whole term of the taxable debt that you issue for 30 years.
And that's certainly something we can analyze and quantify for the city. And just piggybacking off Ms. Turner on the terms, the 15-year versus 20-year. The 15-year being 5 years shorter, you're going to get a little bit lower interest rate. That's another thing to consider. Current market, low 3% on a 15-year, 20-year, high 3%. That's just something to keep in the back of your mind.
But Mr. Turner, you're right. I think the point is, as we walk the Victor, the whole idea is, how do we make the event center cash flow better? And so,
More events?
yeah, exactly, well, yeah, that's gonna be true too, but the things we can control, we can refinance the debt, which we're going to do, and put it out where it should have been, right? And then we could probably generate some savings from acquiring it. The others will be dependent on operational history and getting people there, but these are things within our control that we can, you know.
And plus, you know, the subsidizer with the ad valorem as well, you know, so, I mean, I think that's the only way that we'd we'd shoot ourselves in the foot by going from a 15-year to a 20, you know, how much, that's a lot of money in just an interest that would be just thrown away when we can.
Would you be able to tell us, just
Is there,
from the top of your head, right like that? If we refinance those, the 2007 series, then there would be obviously a savings long-term. Then that can be applied to our short amount on 15, correct?
Yes, you're right, there'll be a savings, and what Mr. Kuhn was saying is, because your annual payment is $85,000, even if we go from a 7% to a 3%, the principal amount's so small, let's say we save $20,000, just, I'm throwing a number out there off the top of my head, we save $20,000 annually, we go from $85,000 to $65,000. $20,000, that's great, that's a lot of money, but Ms. Moreno's probably gonna be wanting more, you know, she's not gonna feel
She
20,000.
already
Yeah.
Well, I think Councilman was saying the other thing I think saying was, okay, right now we're paying 2007 over 30 years. Maybe the thought would be just like, I know it's unpleasant to kind of bite the bullet and say, but 5 years is a lot of interest for and if we shorten the land acquisition to I'm just throwing out a number, and 10 years, right? Then you save 20 years at a taxable rate. That's real money.
Yeah.
That's real money. That doesn't mean it makes it any less hard on you guys, but it's, this is what you're planning to do. No one anticipated what was going to happen in 2008. Now, like I said, the thing you should be very proud about is the triple notch increase you got in your ratings, right?
Yeah.
So, okay.
it makes it more presentable.
Exactly, so you're gonna get, as Duncan said, 15-year, you're gonna get a lower interest rate. Like I said, and then you can focus on how do you fix the 210 and the 302. You have some control over that, right? You do, right? But this is, like I said, you guys, it's a business decision for you guys. And I get, but I mean, you know, we can have some impact on the land there. It's not going to be the magnitude of what you're thinking. Not magnitude, right? It'd have to be, have to be 5 million rather than 1 million, because there's just not enough principal when you compare the delta, right?
Exactly.
So the best case scenario would be 15 years.
And raise the taxes.
A good decision would be 20. But the best case scenario is a 15. I think that's what we just said last time.
In regards,
To how long they go out for destruction, 15 or 20 years.
You're gonna get more bang for your buck at 15 years.
no, you're right, you're gonna pay less interest, so you're gonna pay 5 years less of interest, you're gonna get a lower interest rate. It's like your personal finances, you know, what can you afford, if you shorten it, you know, if I borrow my house 15 years, it's gonna hurt me a little more annually, but I pay it off sooner, it's a more prudent fiscal decision to make, but, you know, that's God's decision.
But again, the shortfall is still gonna be higher in a 15-year than it would be in a 20-year.
Yes,
Unless you shorten that shortfall more with,
Any additional
with the additional revenues. Yeah, with the, from the rental fees, any additional,
And just to, exactly what you're saying, looking at the entire 4A corporation, so the cash flow shortfall difference between a 15-year and a 20-year is less than $100,000. So that's not a huge number when you're talking 5 years less of interest.
I just want to give you a little bit of information in regards to the land. I'm sorry I started talking to Chris, but in principle right now, we are, out of the 84,000, we're only paying for 2015, $15,000 to principal. And the rest of the 84,000 or 85,000 is going to interest. So that is pretty high.
that's a lot.
That's a function of you borrowed at 30 years.
Yes.
That's a lot. Should have never
It happened. You gotta move on.
So roughly it's about 55,000 going to interest every year.
And just to refresh people's memories, I wasn't here, but I believe the reason you did taxable is because you wanted to have a lot of flexibility on having private industry on the land, you know, a whole bunch of things you couldn't do tax exempt. That's a different council now. I'm hearing that, okay, that doesn't work, so if we acquired.
Well, it doesn't work because we haven't tried.
Well, okay, but at least, I mean, you could certainly go issue taxable debt to acquire the land from the city again. That seems to me to not, you know, that doesn't seem to be, in my mind, even though taxable rates are lower today than they were when you did it, it seems to me that you're making a business decision. If you're really trying to save money, you're saying, we're not gonna chase private business on that land. If we issue tax exempt debt to acquire the land from the 4A, then it's, comes with all the handcuffs that you have a tax finance.
I don't think the council's saying that.
Okay, that's all right, okay.
Yeah,
I just don't want to mislead
I'm not
people.
saying that staff is recommending that, I'm just saying that if you go with the 15, you're gonna have to address that land issue because of, you know, what we can say, because that is definitely the most aggressive way to pay it down. And so we can actually say, Vaughn, we need to actually focus on getting somebody to come into a partnership with us in reference to that land, and give yourself a time period we can do it, and then say, we haven't done it in 3 years, we haven't done it in 5 years, then let's go ahead and switch over, so that we can shorten it, and then they come out together and say, instead of doing it, get it down to 10, and then they'll come out together.
And I think the way the council saw it before is that developing that land to pay off the debt, you know, bringing in things like bowling alleys, bringing in things like go-karts, bringing things like batting cages, which are all part of sports entertainment that will fit the bottom.
But we're playing around with the idea of relocating the baseball field to that area, then if that's what we're ultimately planning on doing, then there's no sense of having the partnership. Uh-oh, my turn about to be getting off subject. So,
We're getting away from the,
so just
the
the
agenda
idea to do
point.
that. So I guess we need to do the 15 or 20 years is what everybody's waiting to hear, myself as well.
Mayor, I'd like to open up the citizens' comment and ask Mr. Lawhon and Mr. Gonzalez what they think. And Judge Jimenez?
I think, to me, I mean, the bottom line, if I was doing this like I do it at home, what can I afford? You know, over time, given that I really don't know what the income is gonna be from sales tax, and I really don't know what the income is gonna be from revenue, like using the event center, I can guess at it, I can project that it's gonna grow some. What is gonna be the best outcome for me over 15 or 20 years? What can I afford to do over the 15 or 20 years without a significant change in my current revenue? And that's the way I approach it.
I think that's the way Victor had set it up. It's a very conservative estimate, estimating that the sales tax is going to remain static, and same thing with rents and revenues, so.
And my thinking is that to get aggressive on it, and get aggressive on it, get the a low rate while you can, and be able to pay it down faster, have more money going towards the interest, or more towards the principal than the interest.
You also have to keep into account that whether people like it or not, we're growing. We've got the Valero, CVS is coming in, there'll be other businesses coming in that will be able to produce some monies. So it's not like as if we don't have something other than sales tax, you know. And
Do you have it set up in the, for manipulating the ad valorem to shorten the shortfall?
That's a more complicated formula that you have to do.
I could do it for you if you wanted some specifics there.
That's why he's in.
But yeah, so this is,
Yeah.
this is your current property value,
Okay.
being conservative. We think you're gonna grow. This is the 298 million, so,
Those are the original numbers, correct?
yes, this is what I showed. To cover that shortfall, your current 298 million, that's what it'd have to be. If there's any specific scenarios you'd like to see, I can run those. Are there any specific ones you'd like to see? So we did, you can just going side by side, this is 298 million, and then if we went up to 315 million, it's not a huge, so that's what, 15 million additional, it's not a huge difference. It's to the third or fourth decimal place on the INS tax rate. Going to 325 million, we start moving, that's 25 million more in property value. We start moving, get below 7 cents, below 4 cents here.
But the numbers on the shortfall haven't.
Yeah, that's constant, because nothing above there, we don't change any of our assumptions. So the cash flow shortfall same. The only thing we're changing when I move like that is the property value increasing. And when you quantify that, we like to, that's tangible to the taxpayer. What you pay a month and your tax, so $5, that's a water burger out of your monthly budget.
It's a couple of tacos.
Yeah. It seems it's more tangible than what these pennies mean.
And in the meantime, the appraisal office is still gonna raise the up the value of your homestead anyways. So
Mine in San Antonio went up. Yeah, quite a bit.
So as valuations go up, that shortfall gets smaller and smaller. Less and less.
The shortfall won't change, but the amount to raise on your tax rate to pay it will go down. So there's an inverse relationship with the tax rate and the property value. So your property value goes up, it would take less pennies to cover that shortfall. But the shortfall will stay the same under just keeping our sales tax collections the same, our assumptions.
because there's nothing changing above it.
Yes, sir. There's no property tax revenue coming in there.
Yeah, exactly. But that's just less that the city has to cover.
Exactly.
You're making a recommendation of 15 years?
Mr. Carrillo recommended 15, and we had our discussion in our meeting, and it's an aggressive payment, but I would recommend 15 years. Your argument?
Because of that,
15 years?
I'm gonna tell you what she's learned.
You keep doing it.
Stingy.
Stingy, but we have to raise revenues.
And I think for 15 years we'll do so with a comfortable increase. As I said, I'm really proud that we've been able to move 3 notches in reference to our interest rate. But one of the things that happened back in the day that made us drop down was that you hadn't raised any Avalon taxes. So this would definitely address that issue, that we are being progressive and we're preparing and that we can maintain that A rating that we have, that you have worked so hard to get.
And even though the revenues are gonna be steadily going up, but not as huge as to allow the city not to put so much money into the shortfall. When you calculate these year by year on the property tax, every year it changes. The shortfall goes down because your property values every year go up. So the city contribution to it, yeah, that's what he said.
I'm sorry,
I
second.
said, isn't that what I just asked? If
He said
valuations
as the
go up.
value goes
Yes.
up,
Yes, the required tax rate would be
Will go
lower,
down.
yes.
That's what he said. He said it was an inversion. So if we go for the 15 years, the shortfall is not that big. It's 210,000.
That's your recommendation? 15 years?
15 years.
I will put it in, it is for consideration next year.
Well, there's some other things that need to be.
Yeah, like I said, I think I'm hearing this is the most difficult part, so maybe y'all could vote on that and we'll go to the other parameters if that's okay. So the maximum, Duncan, would be when and when, what's that?
The term,
What are we using? We use September 1? What are we using for the?
I'm gonna pull that up. Yes, so September 1, 2030.
Your land is to 2037.
So just to refresh the council members, new council. We have one ordinance we're adopting, but now we had the presentation you've seen, so there's 4 subparts that I need help on. It's the maximum term, which I understand that's difficult.
Do we take that individual vote?
I was just thinking that would be the easiest, then
Or
we'll.
just for the record, I think we
Right.
should.
That's, the notice on there from the CNA does have each individual part in there. I don't see really a big issue because the public's on notice. I think if you want to take them each term at a time, we can do that.
So I can take a vote right now
Yeah.
for the land use fund. May I have a motion for that?
I'll go ahead and make the motion to, you can make it. We're gonna make the motion to approve the 15-year payment.
Not to exceed. This
Not
once
to
again,
exceed.
This means the maximum maturity of the bonds can't be longer than September 1, 2030. When we go price, if we end up being, hey, we can do it all for September 1, 2029, better for you guys. I mean, we can shorten it, you know, and it can't go longer than the.
Not to exceed 15 years.
That's the motion.
Can I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Rodriguez, second by Councilman Ortiz. Councilman Nieto.
Can we start over?
no.
Yes.
Councilman Tejada.
Yes.
Councilman Guerrero.
Yes.
I think the others are easier now because there really is the not to exceed interest rate. I'm gonna look to Duncan. I mean, I've generally seen that be either 6 or 7%. It's obviously, they're not gonna recommend a deal that, you know, but you don't wanna shoot yourself in the foot and say, you're thinking it's going to be in the,
Yes, so it's low 3s, mid 3s, but we like to be conservative in these documents, just so we, like you said, we don't shoot ourselves in the foot.
Okay, let me clear the first motion.
oh, okay. Oh,
Motion passes 5-0.
right, I'm sorry, Mayor. The second is, once again, it's a parameter artificial. I've generally seen 7 or 6% here for, you know, not to exceed interest rate. So, you know, I think 6 is gonna be plenty.
I think
Always
6
come
is
in
plenty of
low.
cushion.
Right. So if you can, if you don't mind, someone make a motion to say that interest rate not to exceed 6%. And that's
Well, you
okay.
said the rates right now are 3% and 4%,
All right.
Yeah.
so why would we say if it's 6? So that gives you.
Well, markets are kind of funny, you know, we don't foresee anything, but if they do go up to, if they go up to 5% between now and June 30th, we're covered.
And Councilman, don't forget the other trip you're gonna have here, you're gonna have to fill in, savings can't be worse than X. So you're gonna have a parameter, like I said, that's the, on these parameters, this is, like I said, there's normally not a lot of debate about whether it's 7 or 6, because the reality is, if the rate was anywhere close to that, I'm pretty sure your financial advisor would say, we're not doing it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not, like I said, I would,
Well, then you'd end up having to refinance at a higher year. I mean,
Right.
you would do it more at a 20-year than at a 15.
I'll make the point, I guess I've seen the experience. People have said, okay, we're gonna put in 5%. What happens if on the day 502 is what it was? Would you not have done the deal? That's what I'm saying. And this is, like I said, I think the financial advisors have told you, here's what I think the market is, you know, but it is a parameter, and so if any one of the interest rates in 2030 are north of what we say, then the Attorney General will approve the bonds.
And we
So,
can't lock in a rate on this tomorrow.
I mean, we've already started on the process. We're going to be ready June 30th. We're teed up. But not tomorrow.
And just the procedurally, it's gonna have to come back for whoever the approving authority is. So if it comes back to you, Mayor, or you, Henrietta, and it says 6% in there, and you're like, no, we're not doing that,
you absolutely have.
you still can just not approve with the term. But Victor would never let it, never move the bonds to market at 6%. Okay.
I think 6% gives us plenty of room.
Y'all comfortable with that, guys?
Sounds better to do
5.065%.
5.99.
That's fine.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilman Rodriguez. Do I have a second?
What's the motion?
5.99?
6%.
5.99?
No, 6.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Second, please.
I'll second.
A motion by Councilman Rodriguez, second by Councilman Guerrero. Councilman Ortiz, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councilman Tejada?
Yes.
And Councilman Nieto?
Yes.
The motion carries 5-0.
Next, Mayor, is the not to exceed principal amount. Once again, I've got to depend on you, Duncan, to
Okay.
make sure that.
So this is the same, we're refinancing approximately $6 million. We'd like a little cushion there. I think $8 million, $7 million gives us plenty of room.
Just for rolling in closing costs?
Yes, but those are already factored into our numbers, so, but, you know, the interest rate we get, the size would change a little bit, so, like I said, I would say $7 million, I'm comfortable with it.
Is it total loan?
Total principal amount, yes, sir. Not to exceed.
The worst case scenario, 6 million at a 6% interest.
Yeah, like I said, these are just
And then we don't
to be
sign.
conservative, very conservative in these documents.
Just, okay. I'm sure the Victor would not.
No,
He knows what we're looking
Yeah,
we got a lot riding on these tires.
yeah, exactly.
Okay, do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilman Rodriguez.
Not to exceed 7 million.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
A second by Councilman Nieto. Councilman Guerrero, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councilman Ortiz?
Yes.
Councilman Tejada?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
And once you have those facts, then the last two are not to exceed gross loss, not to exceed net present value loss. So one more time, Duncan, you're in the hot seat, but
Yeah, so he's talking about these figures here. The that's the present value cost of extending those payments. So we're looking at the 15-year. I think to be conservative, we just use the 20-year figure for the present value, the 370. And then that would come out to a gross of, let's see here. Our gross currently is about 1.3, so I would say no more than 2 million in gross loss. And that's that false cost that we talked about that we have to put in there, because it was never our intent to pay off this soon. It's just the cost of extending it.
Okay, could I have a motion on that?
So I'm just on here, you're saying 370, and that's a net present value loss,
Yeah, and let me,
and a gross loss of,
I think a hundred over.
2 million.
For gross.
What do you think about that? Over?
so we could do for round numbers 1.5.
350. At 1.2.
one is 370 is present, he's talking about $1.5 million gross. That's the two. You're comfortable that we're not going to.
And that's getting a little close. I would just say I'd say 2. I don't foresee it being that, but you want to give yourself a little cushion worst case.
$800,000?
Yeah.
You want the AG to come back.
I'm very conservative on finances. But that's
What I think is really important here is this is a parameter, but I think it's really important, obviously, Victor's got to make a recommendation to the mayor and the city manager. I think it's important at the next city council meeting, when this deal's done, you make a presentation to the public to say, look, people that were here tonight heard these numbers, this is what it actually was, so that there's no.
Right now, we just need that gap.
Exactly. You're giving yourself ceilings in all of them, and you'd come back and report. I recommend, Ms. Turner, that, you know, this is, if we price on June 30th, here's what happened, and these numbers would all be. So you'd have in the record, here's what we're doing tonight, and here's what the actual results are.
But he goes out to the market, you said by the end of June.
Yes, ma'am.
You anticipate them being sold and ready to be funded, all done?
So we'll lock in the rate on that date, June 30th, when we enter the market. We'll lock in the interest rate. It'll be fixed.
And then we'll have the clear definition of what all these four.
Exactly.
parameters are.
We'll finalize all these numbers that day.
In the June, in the June?
Same thing with price.
Yes, ma'am.
And then we actually close the transaction.
Yeah.
Funds exchange on July 29th, a month later. So we're going to go to Texas Attorney General to have them approve.
And then we can bring it to the July city council meeting to report on
Absolutely.
what you'd like to have.
Exactly. That'd be my recommendation.
After July 29th,
Anytime after June 29th. So we lock it in.
So the July, what is it, the July, the first meeting in July is
The 9th.
9th. No, it's, yeah, it's
Second
the 9th.
Thursday, believe it or not.
9th. Yeah. July 9th will be the next, the first council meeting.
So it's the 9th, July 9th.
Uh-huh.
So we'll have it on the agenda for the 9th, and we'll have the final numbers there.
Good job.
What the mayor was asking, that we can have these numbers that we're projecting right now for the 15, and then compared to what actually happened in actual. So we'll put those, the parameters, we'll have a spreadsheet, about what the parameters were that we set, and then what we actually received, so it's easier for people to see. So we'll have something for you like that.
Oh, we haven't taken a vote on the last parameter.
But without, so there's a fourth and a fifth, or just-
There's one, but it's
it's a.
gross and present value loss.
Together.
Yeah, because they're tied together.
Can I get a motion on this?
It's what, 370?
For the net present value for 370,000, and the gross loss to be 2 million,
Not to exceed.
not to exceed 2 million. So that cushion, we need some of those.
Motion, please. No. Need a motion?
I think we're trying to figure out how to word it.
I would say, Councilman, that as an idea, the motion would be that the present value loss not exceed $370,000 and the gross loss not exceed $2 million.
Okay.
What
That's
you
so
said?
stated.
And a motion?
That's cheating, Councilman.
So, it's on record. Second.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, a motion, Councilman Guerrero, second by Councilman Ortiz. Councilman Rodriguez, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councilman,
Yes.
Councilman Becker.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Mayor, if I can, then I'll go back to the rest of the ordinance is, I will complete it now. I'll send it back to the city secretary tomorrow for it to insert it in the records. Duncan has laid out the timetable. The underwriter for the bonds is RBC Capital Markets. Their lawyer is Bill Avila with Floresville Giuliani. Duncan's laid out the schedule. The rest of the ordinance will lay out the business terms once the parameters are there. If the city council is levying, obligating itself to levy an ad valorem tax to repay these out, general obligation bonds. Remember, money is fungible. The bondholders don't care what the source of money is, right? They care that the money is put in their debt service fund. Okay? So you have flexibility as you're budgeting, but like I said, if you didn't pay, the bondholder could come in and force you to levy an ad valorem tax to pay them. The rest of the documents lays out who the paying agent registrar agreement is, continuing disclosure of information. We say it's going to be tax exempt, so we're not going to violate any tax exempt covenants. And we're obviously the beauty of the original deal is it's a current refunding, so while you're paying the $100,000 that's due on 2010, you would then be extending the 5 or 4 years at the $1 million